What is a fact about the human body that not many people know about? Story 1. Your brain continues to try to revive the body long after the heart has stopped. In some cases, 30 hours later, there is brain activity trying to make repairs to bring the body back. This is used to indicate time of death in murder victims. Reply 1. This makes me very uncomfortable in an existential way. Story 2. Touch between your eyes, then push your tongue up to the roof of your mouth, and you can very slightly feel a bone move. If you do this while your nose is stuffed, it will make it drain about a minute later. Reply 1. I have chronic sinus problems. I did this, and a whole bunch of snot went pouring down my throat. I'm not mad about it. Hey, I'm going to try this next time I'm sick and have a stuffy nose. But if there's someone who's watching who's got a stuffy nose, let us know in the comments if this method works. Story 3. If you squirt warm water into someone's ear with a syringe, their eyes will automatically turn to the side that you squirted the water. If you use cold water, their eyes will automatically turn to the other side. Story 4. Babies can break their collarbone during delivery. It happens quite often, but heals quickly. My teacher told me that, if it happened to you of course, you may feel a slightly higher spot on your collarbone, called the callus, where the fracture grew back together. Reply 1. Not only is it quite often, sometimes it has to be done deliberately. Story 5. There's a right and a wrong way to swallow, and the first swallow pattern you learn isn't the right one. Babies swallow by pushing their whole tongue forward, since it's better for nursing. However, as you transition to solid foods, you are supposed to change to a swallow where you put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth and roll the food back. Not everyone does, and those that don't are more likely to choke, eat too fast, develop dental problems, and some develop a lisp or distorted sounds as they learn to talk. Reply 1. I can swallow with my tongue sticking out of my mouth, but it's difficult for some reason. I wonder how many other people are currently gagging on their own tongue trying this out, and realizing they never progress beyond baby swallowing. That sounds all kinds of wrong. Story 6. Positive blood type women can have positive and negative blood type babies without issue. Negative blood type women require a shot with antibodies to prevent the mother's immune system from attacking the fetus if it is a positive blood type. Story 7. You can live normally with half of your brain. In some severe drug-resistant epileptic syndrome in young kids, the only option to stop the seizures is to remove a complete brain hemisphere. After a while, with proper re-education and all, the children can go on to have a normal life without any cognitive deficit. They will have a limp, blindness in one eye, and a very weak arm, but can lead a normal life and not end up cognitively impaired. One of the earliest signs of Alzheimer's disease, before the memory loss, could be the loss of the sense of smell. It's also the case with Parkinson's disease. Our brain looks wrinkled because it is actually folded inside our skull in order to fit a maximum of surface area, and thus neurons and cell communications. Some animals like rodents have a completely smooth brain. Oh brother, this explains why some of my exes are stupid. It's not their fault, they just have a completely smooth brain. Story 8. There are tiny cilia that spin in a certain direction. If they spin in the opposite direction while you're developing in the womb early on, that is how you get organs transposed onto the opposite side of your body. Reply 1. Yep, mirrored twins happen when twins originated as one embryo split into two later than usual. Though mirrored organs are rare even in mirror twins. Mirror twins often have the same birthmark on opposite sides, cowlicks on opposite sides of the hairline, or the hair grows out of their scalps in opposite spiral patterns. Reply 2. I remember we had a doctor visit our school during Careers Week who said he'd met 3 patients with flipped organs, and each time he called in a medical student and asked them to take the patient's heartbeat, apparently it was really funny watching the student put the stethoscope on the left side and seeing the color drain from their face. Story 9. You can grow a new human being faster than most missing toenails can grow back. Reply 1. I lived this last year. I was about a month into my pregnancy when I caught my toe on something in the garage. It peeled back the top half of the nail, but I quickly pushed it back down. And to my surprise, the nail stayed on even though it bled, then turned black after. I remember being about 8 months pregnant and wondering if the toenail would be finished growing out, so no more black showed by the time the baby arrived. I think I still had a sliver of black when I gave birth. So that took about 8 months for just the top half of the toenail to grow out. Story 10. You hate the sound of your recorded voice because it's missing the low frequency you're used to hearing. When you talk, you hear your voice as it goes to the air and back to your ear. It also goes through your skull to your ear, and this bone conduction mechanism transmits the low frequencies better than air does. Your recorded voice only has the air-transmitted sound. That causes the dissonance between what you think your voice sounds like and what it really does. It's also why your voice will almost always be higher pitched than you think. Reply 1. No, so that means my voice sounds like the recordings to other people? Reply 2. Audio engineer here. So the answer is both yes and no. First off, you're not hearing your own voice objectively. Your brain goes, that's different and therefore gross, whereas nobody who isn't you thinks it sounds gross. Second, audio recording isn't perfect. The human ear and psyche is more accurate hearing a voice face to face than over a recording. Third, this is more just personal experience. Everyone talks different when they think they're on mic anyway. I don't know about you guys, but I can't relate to any of these stories at all. I don't change the way I talk while I'm speaking with a microphone, and I think my voice sounds absolutely handsome. Story 11. Your body will reduce your muscle strength to protect your spine. Stand on flat ground, hold your arms out in a T pose, and have a friend push down on your hand while you try to hold it in place. That's your control, how strong you actually are. Now remove one shoe or put a book under one foot and repeat with your hips askew so your spine isn't straight. An inch is all it takes. Your strength will be reduced to the point that your friend can use a single finger to push your hand down. I just tried doing this, and not gonna lie, I am really shocked. You should try it. Story 12. Babies don't get kneecaps until 2 to 6 years old. Not gonna lie, that information is really upsetting. Story 13. Humans feel less satisfaction when they don't gain anything from an interaction. In other words, you get less dopamine, or whatever feel-good chemical, when you do something that basically has an equal cost and reward. This has led me to believe that free food does really taste better. It never made sense to me why cupcakes only tasted good when kids brought them in for their birthday. Whenever I'd buy them on my own, they tasted worse. I guess it's because my brain knows I spent money on them. Story 14. Your brain regulates how strong your muscles are. If your leg muscles were to contract at full strength, they would snap your femur. It's why people in emergencies on adrenaline can lift cars off children. Your body is capable of great strength, but it could also severely damage you, so your brain keeps you a weak, soft bag of jelly. So this explains why I am so weak. Story 15. You will sooner die from lack of sleep than lack of food. You can live, depending on your current body fat and health level, for months without food. Estimates are that you will die from lack of sleep within 2 weeks. Reply 1. I stayed up for 3 days straight in college finishing my senior engineering project. After I turned it in, I crashed hard for a couple of hours, but dreamed I killed a girl with a pair of scissors. My mom was visiting and found a pair of earrings and started asking whose they were, and I knew that she had figured out that I was a murderer. When I woke up, I went out and told my buddy that I think I killed someone. He kind of laughed, but I sure didn't. I felt absolutely horrible about it. It literally took me 2 full days before I could finally say that I probably hadn't killed anyone, but it was a full week before I totally convinced myself. I'd pulled all-nighters before and saw shadows move and the usual minor hallucinations, but this was a totally different level of weird. Story 16. A human body can be drained of blood in 8.6 seconds, given adequate vacuuming systems. I wonder if anyone ever tried this, or even a better question, how do you know this? Story 17. X-rays of children's mouths are nightmare fuel. The second set of teeth to replace baby teeth are already fully grown and lodged in their skulls. So you'll see 2 rows of teeth and it's freaky looking. They don't grow in when the old ones fall out. They are already loaded in the chamber, waiting to get launched. Story 18. In theory, humans could breathe a liquid if it was super saturated with oxygen. It wouldn't be easy because the density of liquid is so much higher than air, So after 15 minutes or so, you would be too fatigued to continue breathing. The hardest part is getting all the liquid out of the lungs so the person doesn't get a pneumonia. Reply 1. There is such a liquid. It is called perfluorocarbon. It has proposed uses in diving, space travel, medical treatments, and torture. Story 19. If you faint at the sight of your own blood, you may have an oversensitive vasovagal response. The theory is that this developed as a survival mechanism, kind of like an opossum playing dead. Reply 1. Nope, I'm a hospital worker and it can hit everyone. Some people know it happens to them, and it's nice to be forewarned, but some people can have been fine many times before, then have a one-off episode where it just triggers. The thing I think is interesting is that it can still affect people who are fine with having tattoos or piercings done. My hypothesis is that it's a combination of those different feelings to an intravenous injection and possibly a psychological element tied into feeling less in control / it being less your choice when in a medical setting. Story 20. Your stomach is surrounded by more brain cells, 500 million neurons, than the brain of a cat contains in total. It's your enteric nervous system. It controls digestion, operates autonomously, has its own memory, can handle its own reflexes, it has its own senses even. It's thought to have come about because of the blood-brain barrier and the main brain being locked away in the skull, a spinal column, and nerves away from the critical action of nutrition. Reply 1. I had a friend in college that would always say, "This was why your stomach feels weird when you use hallucinogens." I always thought he was joking when he would say, "Your stomach has a brain, so your stomach trips too." Story 21. When you cry and your nose becomes runny, it's actually your tears. Reply 1. This is because of tear ducts that run from the eyes into the nose, right? Story 22. Apparently, not everyone knows that women grow a new organ while pregnant. In addition to growing a child, they grow the placenta. Story 23. That motion sickness is your brain thinking you've been poisoned. Your inner body senses that you're moving, but your eyes don't see it. So the message that your brain receives is that you're hallucinating and you must have been poisoned. So it tells your body to vomit out any poison. Jesus, I always wondered why I felt like crap while reading a book in a car, and now I know. Thank God. Story 24. That caffeine doesn't wake you up. It just suppresses the part of the mind that wants to sleep. Reply 1. Isn't that essentially the same thing? What is wakefulness if not the absence of tiredness? Reply 2. Caffeine does not step on the gas. It puts a brick behind the brake. Story 25. How strong your body is. Our brains have a limiter that prevents our muscles from reaching their full power because we could hurt ourselves. In the same way, cars have governors that keep you from revving too high or going too fast. When we get a kick of adrenaline, that limiter can be removed. One story I like is the kid who was working under his car, 60s Impala IIRC, and the jack gave out, pinning him. Dude's middle-aged mom comes out and is able to lift the car enough for the kid to get out. My dad's a volunteer firefighter and says it's not uncommon for people to go to crazy lengths to save loved ones. Walls torn down with bare hands to get to other rooms when there's fire in the halls, windshields punched out, etc. One time, a guy showed up at a wreck his wife was in and pulled the door open with his hands that 3 firefighters couldn't get open and were preparing to use the jaws of life. The frame was bent or something, but he was able to bend the top of the door down where the window is. Story 26. A bite from a human will almost always get infected. Reply 1. It's theorized that we were on our way to evolving poisonous bites. The cultures of bacteria in our mouths seem excessive for just digestion, like we're starting to deliberately formulate them to be dangerous to bite victims. Story 27. Your hands are capable of incredibly fine motor control, so much so that your limitation is actually your eyesight. Put a specimen under a good microscope, and people can do very fine micromanipulations without much difficulty. Story 28. 1/3 of women will have a miscarriage, but most won't notice because it will be so early. Story 29. Humans have stripes. We just normally can't see them. They're called Blaschko's lines and form along the paths of embryonic cell migration. The stripes are sort of U-shaped down our front, V-shaped on our back, wavy on the head and face, and we have basic simple stripes on our extremities. Story 30. The heart doesn't pump. It actually twists itself. Ah, alas, and sometimes it also breaks. Story 31. Quite a large part of how physically fit you remain is an epigenetic process. This means that it takes around 6 months to essentially reprogram your cells to a fit metabolism, where certain protein synthesis channels are prioritized and adipose storage is reduced. This is one of the reasons why quick fix diets can never work. A great deal of hard work is required to persuade the body to stay healthy. Story 32. In a human body, there are 10 times more bacterial cells than human cells. Reply 1. Here's another fun fact. There are about as many cells in the human body as there are stars in the biggest galaxy in the universe. Story 33. Mammalian diving reflex. Ever wondered why splashing cold water on your face calms you down? It's because of this reflex. Basically, when cold water contacts your face, the brain activates a few very specific responses designed to maximize your chances of surviving and not drowning. This reflex is strongest in aquatic mammals such as seals, otters, dolphins, etc., but humans have the response too, just weaker. There are 3 reactions that happen in this order. The first reaction that happens is your heart rate slows. This helps lessen oxygen in the bloodstream, leaving more for other organs. The second reaction is some capillaries start to restrict. This happens specifically when under high pressure from deep diving. It starts with toes and fingers, moves to hands and feet, and eventually arms and legs. This leaves more oxygen to be used by your organs and the brain. Lastly is a sort of water shift that occurs only during very deep dives. This is when your organs and circulatory walls open up and allow water and plasma to pass freely through your thorax. This is so that your organs don't get crushed by the pressure. Even the alveoli in your lungs fill with plasma. It all gets reabsorbed when you leave the pressurized environment, so you don't, die. Even when only your face is submerged in cold water, your body immediately starts to prioritize oxygen use to your brain and your heart. It's really neat. One last note that I can't verify is true or not is that when submerged, your brain makes you very calm. This is in order to prevent excess oxygen use from freaking out. It would explain the calm feeling I feel when underwater for medium to long amounts of time, like when scuba diving. It also would explain why splashing cold water on your face is such a widespread thing. Story 34. Humans are one of a few species of mammal that oddly don't produce their own vitamin C due to a lack of a certain enzyme. Other mammalian species who exhibit this mutation are those contained in the main primate suborder, Haplorhini, monkey, apes, tarsiers, as well as bats, capybaras, and guinea pigs. All other mammals produce vitamin C in the liver. I guess we humans are not as advanced as we thought we are. Story 35. Most reflexes never make it to your brain. The sensory aspect travels to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord itself sends the muscle movement signals to your limbs. Story 36. Your brain likes stimulation. If it doesn't get any, it will make some up. Some people are more susceptible to it than others. The colors you see before you fall asleep are a common mild occurrence. There are several classes of these hallucinations: closed-eye visuals, which are caused by leaving your eyes closed for a long time; hypnagogia, which is caused by the onset of sleep; prisoner's cinema, which is caused by looking into a dark place for a long time; Gonsfeld effect, which is caused by blocking out all external stimuli; and Charles Bonnet syndrome, caused by sight loss. Most of these are simple phosphenes, but some can be whole imagined scenes or more abstract fractal-like imagery. Story 37. People who live in extreme conditions for generations adapt in extreme ways. For example, people that live in high elevations often have larger lungs and different blood makeup. Or my favorite is the Bajau people that live on the water and spend a lot of their time diving. Their spleens have become 50% larger in order to store more blood. Story 38. When you get conditioned to physical activity, your circulatory system adapts. More blood, more vessels, more blood cells. But your lungs really don't. This is because no matter how much blood your heart is able to deliver to your lungs, the lungs still have no problem oxygenating it. This is why your oxygen saturation doesn't drop during exercise, unless you have a heart defect. Reply 1. Is that why, regardless of how much I exercise, I can't go up a flight of stairs without huffing and puffing? Story 39. Mitochondria, the powerhouse of our cells according to every high school bio teacher, are just bacteria that permanently set up shop in our cells millions and millions of years ago. The heart can generate its own electrical impulses, i.e. action potentials, because it is constantly depolarizing. That's why a heart will continue beating even after it's removed from the body. Story 40. For years, I had pain in my knee. My doctor would examine my knee and say it was fine. I finally requested an x-ray to find out why my knee hurt. The doctor agreed, but he said he also wanted to x-ray my hip. A year later, I had a total hip replacement, and now my knee doesn't hurt anymore. Story 41. 39% of people have an extra bone in their knee. 100 years ago, only 11% of people had this bone. Story 42. Humans have, on average, just as many hairs on their body as chimpanzees. Human hair is just a lot shorter and finer. Story 43. The shoulder blade is a more complicated joint than you'd think. While the hip is a ball and socket that just rotates, the shoulder can fold forward. If you sit with your back against the chair, hold your hand on your collarbone, then try moving your shoulder forward. You should be able to move the joint forward without moving your back from the chair. Story 44. The surface area of the lungs is about the same size as a tennis court. Reply 1. That's crazy, although it does explain how it can transfer O2 and CO2 so fast. Reply 2. Because many people imagine lungs as balloons, while it's more like sponge. That's how you get a lot of area, a lot of very long tunnels. And then your lung surface area is the sum of all those tunnels' inner surface.